I encourage each one of you to take the time to be still. Take the time to be in nature. Take the time to go sit on the ocean or under a tree or on a mountaintop or even in your own backyard, even in the city, in the middle of everything going on. Take some time just to be still, to get really quiet and ask for help from your guides. Ask for help from your angels that are already there providing whispers of information, and they're there to help support, but they can't always act because of free will until we ask for that help and we are sincerely sitting and waiting for an answer.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite. Hey friends, I know you're here because you're interested in being healthy and fit in mind, body, and spirit, and you know that you've got to harmonize your environment. One of my absolute go-to tools that I've been using for years now is my biogeometry equipment. I've had the esteemed honor of having the one and only Dr. Ibrahim Karim, the founder of biogeometry, on my show twice. That's episodes 148 and 218. In a nutshell, biogeometry is bio, meaning life, geometry, which is shape. And we have discovered, or basically rediscovered, that there are tools and techniques that we can do now in our modern lives that will help bring this harmonizing, coherent, centering energy of nature and the divine into our lives and into our body. I use it every single day. You wear the jewelry, you can get the home kit, take it up a notch, and your whole house has the total zen, beautiful, harmonized vibe. It's just a beautiful discovery. Hit up my website, eStore, which is my name, amyfournier.com. Look for biogeometry. Make sure you use my coupon code AmyFournier at checkout, and you can save 8% off your purchase. Hey everybody, I'm sure you know how important it is to help your body properly detoxify. My goodness, if we really looked at how many toxins we are exposed to, toxins in the air, toxins inside homes, mold, furnishings, as well as food sources, all these things that our bodies are dealing with, we got to help it out. Energy Bits Algae Tabs are nutrition powerhouses that are great not only for detoxification, but also for energy and for beauty. Why? Because they help your skin, which is a huge detoxification organ, and it helps the collagen in your skin and helps to keep it plump and looking clear and bright and clean. I love Energy Bits. I mean, this is a superfood. I can't emphasize enough. You can use my coupon code AmyF at checkout and you can save a whopping 20%. Try them. Let me know what you think. I promise you won't be disappointed. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. This show is about helping you to be healthy and fit in mind, body, and spirit, as well as harmonize your masculine and feminine energy, tap into your intuition, your true source of power, and awaken your authentic self. My friend, do you consider yourself a light worker? Or maybe you aspire to be a light worker? Well, nowadays, it appears that we need to actually be more than light workers. We need to now transition into being light warriors. My guest today, Heather Newkirk, shared that revelation with me among many other fascinating things. This is such an interesting conversation. Heather Newkirk is the wife of Ross Newkirk. That name might ring a bell, because he was on my show before, episode 105. If you're interested in the topic today, you definitely want to check out that episode. We talk about connecting to higher consciousness, connecting to core harmony, and creating a coherent field. And we also talk about the very interesting creme de la creme of crystals, the Vogel-Cut crystals. That's episode 105 with Ross Newkirk, who is Heather's husband. Heather is founder and president of the Awaken Wholeness Center, which is in Richmond, Rhode Island. She is an intuitive and a clairvoyant. She does intuitive guidance sessions and readings, both for adults and children. and has played an instrumental role in the development of the Lightfield, Grace, and Quantum Flow conscious raising technology. She's also on the National Board Certification of Teachers, has a master's degree in supervision and administration, and she's a certified Reiki practitioner who's working with her husband shoulder to shoulder in helping raise the consciousness of humanity at this time. In addition, Heather is the mother of two, one very intuitive and connective boy who's 10 years old, and he's actually here in real time, and one very special little one that's waiting in the wings, who's actually attempted to come to the world twice now, but is still waiting for just the right time to fully engage with us and the planet. This is so touching, my friends. Oh my gosh. Like I said, we talk about so many amazing things, but Heather shares very, very personal experience with her miscarriages. And she gives some help to any moms out there or moms-to-be or anybody that's involved in the experience of a miscarriage. And she gives some beautiful, heartfelt advice on that. So in today's show, it's such a cool discussion. We talk about being light workers, about getting more aware of our heart space and how all life and all healing and all fulfillment and all true satisfaction and magic really happens when we connect with that heart space. So I asked Heather, how do we do that? Do you have any tips for us? We talk about doing intuitive readings and getting angelic support from people around us. Maybe you're somebody that doesn't have a lot of physical support in your life, but maybe you're getting angelic support, and I find that very comforting myself. Heather talks to us about being on our path and finding our dharma and working our destiny and finding our soulmate, how she found her soulmate and exactly what she did. And how if you're compromising in relationships, you might be a little bit off track, my friend. And then we get into the state of the world today. Heather gives her perspective on what's going on with the planet and consciousness on a bigger picture. So we really zoom out for that one. We get into the most difficult journey that there can be for a lot of us, awakening Aphrodite and getting out of that head and getting into that heart. And how our human family can be different from our light family, how we define family. What does family mean to you, and who would be someone you consider as family? And a hint, they don't have to be blood related. Heather also shares another very personal experience that she's had in losing her mother at a young age and how she healed from that, and the world supported her in that healing. It's so touching and beautiful, and I'm hoping that might be able to help you too, or someone that you know that has gone through that pain of losing a mother. And we get into this topic of star children. Have you heard of this concept? You might hear of starseed children, indigo children, crystal children, rainbow children. What the heck are they? And I asked Heather, how are they different from just maybe a very gifted or special child? And you know how every parent thinks their kid's so smart and amazing, right? I think my dogs are so smart and amazing, and I'm always saying that to everybody probably, where they're like, okay, we know already. But really, are star children different? I mean, what makes them different? How do we know? And Heather gives us some of her personal tips on being more telepathic, on being more intuitive, and how we can cultivate those abilities in ourselves. So this is a really cool conversation. I know you're going to love it. And guess what? I've got great news. Heather agreed to come back for a part 2. So look for that, because on that one, we're going to talk about merging intuitive and practical parenting techniques for the children of today. Going to be a great conversation, because I love talking about intuitive stuff, but we also got to get to boots on the ground, like real life stuff. And Heather's going to come back, because that's really her expertise area as well. So look for Heather Newkirk returning for part 2, more on parenting. Well, I hope you enjoy this episode, my friend. Of course, I want to hear about it. And do you know the best way to support me? And if you're enjoying the content that we bring to you on this show, the best way is to subscribe and share this show and tag me on social media, Fit Amy TV. I'm also on YouTube, Awakening Aphrodite Podcast. And you can check out my e-store where you'll find some discount coupons of all my favorite stuff there. And I hope to see you on social media, or I hope to see you in my new course coming in 2024, Goddess Rising. You're going to love it. We talk about the 4 stages of womanhood, and it's going to be a mind blower, that's for sure. It's a beautiful community that we're creating there, and I hope you consider joining us. All right, let's now join Heather Newkirk. And welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite, everybody. Heather Newkirk, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm so happy to be here today.
I'm thrilled to have you here. Like I mentioned in the intro, I had the best, most educational and inspirational conversation with your husband. Now, I think it was like 2 years ago now. It's crazy to think. I don't even know. It's like the whole time thing is like out of control, like perception of time. But episode 105, like I mentioned with Ross, was so inspiring and educational. And that's back when I first got turned on to all your beautiful consciousness raising technologies, my beloved core harmonizer that I just rave about all the time, and my amazing crystals like this gorgeous one right here, this huge, beautiful Vogel-Cut crystals, one of my favorite. I've got a couple, and people know why they're all so special. I rave about them all the time, but thrilled to hear, wow, you guys are like the power couple, because you are right shoulder to shoulder with your amazing husband and contributing to the world and creating all these amazing things for us. I know you've got a new center you are developing in Rhode Island, which I want to hear about. But other than the intro I gave in the beginning, would you like to just give us a brief background in your own words about yourself and what brought you to where you are now, and basically what you're doing right now, Heather?
Oh, thank you, Amy. Sure. So my initial career that I started off was out in California as an elementary school teacher, and then also in St. Louis as a private school teacher. And throughout those years of teaching, I really wanted to educate myself in the utmost way of really bringing, online to these classrooms, new age information, new ways of teaching, new ways of thinking. And I was so excited to be on that path. And then I got a call from my dad in St. Louis that said he needed some help with my grandfather. And so I moved to St. Louis to help be a caretaker for him for a number of years while I was teaching full time. And it was at that time in my life where I really was yearning to be in a really solid relationship with someone. And so I remember sitting down one day and doing a very specific prayer that asked, the universe to show me the way in the right relationship with someone. And lo and behold, a few months later, I was led to be in contact online to my current husband, Ross. And we actually met online, which seems a little like out there, but was one of the ways the universe brought us together so beautifully.
Yeah.
And now I come to understand we've had many lifetimes together. And in this lifetime here, we're creating consciousness raising technologies together. So you could say I kind of married into this experience with all of these technologies that we do at our center and that my husband's a part of. But I feel like when I left my teaching career to be a part of that, I always knew that I'd be part of teaching in a new and a higher way. And so I really feel like that's really coming on to line more completely by running the Awaken Wholeness Center, being the founder and president of that, and also to be able to be assisting Ross in the technologies he's doing, and then also to be doing intuitive work with people at the center and putting people through sessions with these technologies. And so it's kind of something that I joke about. I kind of married into this experience, this new part of my career, but I really see it more than just a career. It's really, to me, my life path. I've always known since I was little, I'm here to help people. And I've always relied on prayer for healing ever since I was a little girl. And all of that is just coming and blossoming so beautifully in this center called the Awaken Wholeness Center here in Richmond, Rhode Island. And so I'm just thrilled to be a part of this. I feel honored to be a part of it. And I'm super excited to be on this journey with Ross and all the people we're meeting along the way that are making it possible for us to do this work.
It's just so exciting. I can feel the inspired energy of this undertaking. I can just feel it, even though we're even virtual. And right now I'm in Massachusetts when we're recording, and you're in Rhode Island, but it's very, very strong. It's so, I mean, truly, there's really got to be nothing better other than maybe like, and then maybe finding your soulmate or something, but just the feeling like you are on your path, like this is it. Like it's a full body hell yeah. Like there's no doubt in my mind I have hit the bullseye on this is what I was born to do. I think it's unfortunately not very common, and a lot of us are looking for it. But when you get that, my goodness, what a blessing.
Well, thank you. And I think also too, what some people don't realize is that they're on that path. It's just they're adding all those pieces along the
Yeah.
way. And when I look back at every single experience I've had, whether I was teaching or at a time in my career where Ross and I were doing property maintenance up in New Hampshire for high-end clients, like all these skills, have come full circle to be able to do the center and to be able to do the work that I do now. And so when I look back, every single thing was that stepping stone that allowed me to really be in my heart space singing my song now. So it's something I look back and I'm grateful for each one of those experiences. And so I think wherever you are in your life, there are things that you're being led to do that are pieces of where you're headed. And so even if you haven't quite found that and come full circle yet, it's okay, because it's part of your journey and what you're supposed to be doing to be able to be where you're supposed to be.
So glad you said that. That is critical that everyone remembers. I remember one of my favorite quotes when I was one of those people looking for my purpose type people. And it was something to the effect of, you're, as you walk your path, you're on your purpose. Like your path is your purpose of your purpose. Like that's the whole point, and that eventually in retrospect, you're going to look back and you're going to connect those dots, and it's all going to make sense because it's making you ultimately who you're going to be. And it's also who you're becoming along the way, right? Because everything is contributing to your evolution in some regard, even though you might not understand it at the time. But I got to ask you, you mentioned, go back a minute, you mentioned you did a specific prayer to call in Ross, your husband. Do you remember what that prayer was? I'm not going to let you go without telling us what that prayer was.
I can remember the majority of it. I sat down. I remember feeling like I had so much love to share, and I really wanted to share it in the right way with the right person who
Yes.
validated me for being who I was, and that I wouldn't have to change myself to be with somebody
Wow.
else, which
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do. And it's really interesting to me because before I met Ross, I was engaged to another man. And it's interesting, Ross was also engaged before we met, and he was engaged to someone. And we had very parallel experiences at that point in our experience, because I was with someone who he asked me to marry him, and I thought I was supposed to say yes. Like I thought that
Yeah.
that's like what you do. Like someone asks you and you say yes. And we had been dating for a little while, and what I realized as I went through the planning of the wedding was that along the way, I was making little compromises
Oh,
of
yeah.
things that I felt like, well, I'd be okay with that. Even though
Mm.
I may not want to do that myself, I'd be okay with that. And when I realized within 2 months of us getting married, that it was like I wasn't feeling at peace. There was something about this process. I was very good at organizing. I was very good at planning a wedding. We had had multiple showers with gifts. And I remember being pulled back home. I was in California at the time. I remember being pulled back to my hometown of St. Louis. And I remember like my dad specifically saying, like, do you come visit us, come, check and see what we can do to help support this wedding. Maybe just take some time for yourself. And when I was there, I realized I wasn't feeling a great sense of peace.
Yeah.
And so when I returned back to California, I actually made the decision that I couldn't go through with the wedding because I wasn't feeling at peace. And so when I returned home, I returned the ring. We sent all the gifts back. We told
Oh,
everybody that we weren't going to be doing this wedding and we were apologizing. But At the same time, I had to be within my own integrity of how I was feeling in my heart space. And this was long before the work that I do now. This was long before, kind of being more aware of my own heart space. But I knew that I didn't feel at peace. I knew that much. And so I called off the wedding, and lo and behold, Ross had a very similar experience too. And so when we met each other online, we communicated by phone, we communicated by email, and it made it beautiful to be able to really get to the get-go initially of like, who are you? Who do you want to be? And we asked all those really hard questions up front. But you're asking how that we got there, and that is that I remember giving a very specific prayer and just saying, God, I have so much to offer and so much love to give. If I'm not supposed to be with someone, can you just take that love out of my heart? Because it's too hard for me to go through life without meeting my soulmate. It's just too, I was wearing on me time and time again. And so the message came that I needed to make a very specific list of everything that I was looking for in somebody else. And so I sat down one day on single line paper and I wrote every single thing I was looking for in someone else, like the qualities I was looking for, the characteristics, how I wanted to feel when I was with that person. And so I made a very long list, and it was long, very long. And so I kind of like put it out there and I'm like, okay, you've got a big job here to do to find someone who can meet these criteria. Because if not, then I don't want to be married to the wrong person for the
Yeah.
wrong reason. And I've seen too many people in my life around me who are not in happy relationships and
Yeah.
they're not happy being married and they feel obligated to stay because of the children, because of the home life, because of the family or the career, whatever that is. And it's really unfortunate, but people have to have a lot of courage to be able to stand up and say, I can't do this, or I don't want to be with you, and that can take a lot of courage. And I remember going to pick up my wedding dress after I had said I'm not going to marry this guy, and the people said how much courage I had had because I said I'm here to pick up my dress, but I'm actually canceling my wedding. And the other women in the shop were like, that takes a lot of courage. And I didn't really think of it that way at the time, but then I realized, yeah, it did take a lot of courage, especially so close to the ceremony. But going back to this list for Ross, I remember just saying, this is a list that I'm putting out there and I need to have it met so that I know that someone wants to be with me for the right reason. It's a two-way street. It's
Yes.
not just one way. And so I remember then kind of tucking that list away and just holding space for it. And then it wasn't that long after that I met Ross online. And when I met him and we started talking, I realized that after getting to know him, he not only met my list, he exceeded it, which was incredible, just absolutely incredible. And it felt like when I met him for the first time, like we had known each other forever, but that we were still meeting for the first time, but it just felt so familiar. And now I understand that in the work I do, that has to do with, soul families and being soulmates and having experienced other lifetimes together. At the time, I didn't know that, but it really had to do with being so clear and putting in my request to the universe of what I was looking for. And it's fascinating because now I use that analogy a lot in the work I do with my clients when I do intuitive sessions, because a lot of times we ask, like, why isn't something manifesting in my life? And it has to do with putting in a very specific request with the universe. It's like placing an order in a restaurant, right? You place your order and you expect the food's going to come the way you asked for it to be prepared. And so many times, we kind of sabotage our asking because we put it out there and don't see a response right away. And so we say, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to have that in my life, when it's really the universe just taking time to orchestrate all the things that need to happen to make
Yes.
that happen. And so we have to understand that there's sometimes a time delay between what we ask for and when it comes into our life, because either we need more growth, the other person needs more growth, other people are involved in the synchronicity of how that has to be orchestrated. And so time is needed to do that. And so the universe loves us so much that it says, oh, you want this? Oh, wait, you don't want that? Oh, okay, you changed your mind. When really we're just giving up too soon and we need to take the time
Right.
to just hold space and not, try to play God and be like, I need this to be this outcome, And so I think that's how it works so beautifully with me and Ross, is because I put the request out there, which called in his field, and I wasn't specific to how that was going to happen. So when it
Yes.
happened the way it did, then it enabled us to be together so beautifully and in this lifetime where we're supposed to be doing this work together.
Perfect. And I'll add one of my favorite sayings is God always gives you three answers for any prayer or request. Either yes, or not yet, or no, because I have something even better. I mean, that's such a beautiful way to kind of relax, I think, because of so much of it requires faith and patience and all that stuff. And to your point, like not screwing it up, because people do screw it up. They get impatient or whatever, and they just kind of bail ship when, like you said, that you don't know all the pieces that have to be orchestrated. I can give you so many examples like that of other things. It's all about timing, and we don't know all of these intricacies that the universe has to pull off in order to make something happen. So that's perfect. I love it. Can you tell us a little bit more about, you were talking about getting into the heart space. You used that term, which was really cool. Can you tell us what you mean by that, and how we can do that? Because in my opinion, I mean, we know the heart has its own brain, basically, like neurologically, and it's considered to be the seat of the soul and wisdom. Um, how can we do that, Heather? How can we get into our heart space?
That's a great question, Amy. I think that one of the things I've learned about being in your heart space has to do with really tuning in to the emotion of your own, like, automatic response when something is in your outside world around you.
Yep.
And I think that right now we have a unique opportunity on this planet. This planet is going through a huge shift. So I'm going to start out a little bit to answer your question of heart space, but we're going through a huge shift on the planet right now, where there is now more light on the planet than darkness. And that's been ever since 2012. And so when you look at the sun, it is bright white. It's when I was a little kid, it was kind of like a yellow tint to it, and now it's like a bright white bluish light. And so we are going through such a large shift on this planet in this awakening process, with the vibrations, the frequencies on the planet getting higher and higher every day, because we're literally shifting dimensions. We're literally shifting from the third dimension through the fourth, through the fifth, and beyond. And so we're here at a very critical time on this planet where we are literally being asked to switch from our head space, which is 3D, to our heart space, which is 5D. And that's a huge jump that a lot of people are having trouble with right now on the planet, because there's a lot of seeming chaos. There's a lot of seeming stuff going on that is just feels catastrophic at times and very overwhelming. And yet what's happening is as this vibration and frequency on the planet is getting higher and higher and higher, anything of a lower vibration cannot exist in this time space anymore. And so what we're seeing is this crumbling. We're seeing this crumbling of these old ideas that are in these lower frequency bands being able to shift and be out, and remove themselves. And so that what will remain is the higher bands of those frequencies, which is our heart space. And so we've been taught and programmed to live in our head, to like figure it out humanly, figure it out, what our purpose is, what we're supposed to do, what are we obligated for. And because of these, there being more light on the planet, we're being asked right now to jettison old ways of doing things. We're being asked to, deprogram ourselves from what we know to be true, of what we think we know to be true, and what we've been taught in the past, to now be open to more higher ideas, higher vibrational ideas coming through. And so that's what it means to live in your heart space. And it can be really hard when you're in your head and you feel like I don't know how to get out of that. And one of the things that I have found really useful to get out of my head and more into my heart is breath work and breathing and grounding, earthing, grounding. Um, you can even earth and ground and breathe right where you are. You can be, barefoot on the earth, or you can be in a 10-story building and still ground. And so one of the ways that I do that, that really helps me to be in my heart space, is just even as I'm sitting, as I just take a deep breath through my nose and I let it out through my mouth. And I feel where the energy sits in my body and I see where it stops. And so I do it again and I breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. And I breathe and see if I can get that energy to come down through my body, wherever it lands. Keep pushing it down until it gets down into your feet. And once you feel like you can get it down into your feet, you picture roots coming out your feet and going to connect to all the other roots of the trees in the yard or wherever you are, however close or far away they are. And what that allows you to do is to be more in your balanced center space, which pulls you out of your head and down into your heart space, and to be more present with your breath and your breathing. But also you're grounded, which means then you can connect to new ideas, new inspirations, because you're calling in the support of Gaia, your support the earth, that earth energy. And trees are like antennas. And so they're pulling in that cosmic energy. And so as you're connecting, you're literally earthing, but also going through the roots and connecting into the cosmic field at the same time. And it can be very powerful to be able to do it. It doesn't take very long to be able to be grounded in that way, that then pulls you from your head space down into your heart space, so you can be more centered to really tune into, how am I feeling about this? So many people know what they want to do or what they're supposed to do, but they feel obligated, which pulls you up into your head again, rather than breathing and lowering and being like, how do I really feel about that? From there, then you can make the most in tune and balanced decision, because you're focused on your heart space rather than your head space.
In the body and the feeling. And that's basically what my show is about. Awakening Aphrodite. It's awakening that heart space, intuitive body, somatic feeling in us, and getting us out of our head. That saying, the longest journey you ever take is from the head to the heart, right?
Yeah.
And for some of us, longer than others. Can you talk a little bit more about the state of the world? And you and I have spoken in previous conversations. I know that you are very gifted, clairvoyant, and intuitive, and you're able to just read people just in a few minutes of meeting them, which is crazy. And you should wear a sign on your shirt saying, "Watch out. Don't lie to me," or any of that. Don't try to pull the wool over my eyes.
Oh,
A lot of the people that listen to my show and subscribe, or on YouTube or social media, whatever, we're all kind of in the same boat, Heather. We're all trying to be good people and be more intuitive, be more heart focused, live our values, contribute to the world. All these beautiful aspirations that we might have. And a lot of times, we do feel a little bit isolated in that, God, am I like the weirdo? Am I the one like out on the edge? Or I could literally be maybe physically by myself. There aren't a lot of people in my town or in my area. You might see on social media places like Austin and, different places, Austin, Texas, that have a lot of like the type of events and activities and even restaurants and stuff that you might, resonate with and want to go to, but there's nothing like that where you live. So you like, I'm the weirdo. So would you have any tips for us, like those of us who feel like we're kind of in what I just described, that type of person, and maybe we're the black sheep or something? I mean, is there anything going on there that you want to share and give us a sense of hope and
Sure.
encouragement.
Sure, I can try. My understanding of what's going on the planet right now has to do a little bit about what I just described. We're literally shifting dimensions. We're
Yeah.
shifting in our vibrational state as a collective consciousness. And so, as that's taking place, there's a great disconnect between where we used to be and where we are going to, and that separation has to occur for there to be a contrast for you to see the difference between the darkness and the light, because you wouldn't really know that that contrast is there unless you were able to see really dark things. You wouldn't really understand how bright the light is unless you were to see something darker that then puts a perspective on what's light and what's dark. And so there's a huge amount of contrast going on right now for all of us to make a decision about literally what world we want to live in. Do
Yeah.
we want to continue to live in a world where there's so much, focus on greed and focus on destroying the environment and focused on, being isolated from each other and standing 6 feet apart and blaming other people for what their choices are, and the seeming control structure has been in control for a very long time. And for the first time, their boat is getting rocked and they're not sure what to do with that. And so they're scrambling to figure out how to stay afloat, right? But because there's more light on the planet than darkness, they actually have to make their own choices about what world they're going to be living on. And so we have to understand that everyone is here to have their own soul experience. And every one of us is in a different grade. Every one of us, this is Earth's preparatory school, as Mark Ross's dad, Mark, used to say. And what that means to me is that everybody's in their own grade, in their own curriculum, learning what they're here to learn for their soul experience. And we sign up for these soul families where there's a variety of grades and a variety of curriculum so that we can learn what we're here to learn and others can learn what they're here to learn. And so it's very easy at this time, especially with everything going on in the world, to feel like we're being divided to be conquered. But if we can
Yeah.
recognize and become back into a state of empowerment and realize that we're the captain of our ship and we're the ones in control of our life, no one else is in control of your very life other than you and source, you and universe, you and God. You can any name, you can use any name you want. And if you don't believe in that, then just focus on things in nature, focus on any, feeling like, any support you can pull from around you, from your own, you good kind of tribe, so to speak. But there's a big shift going on right now where we're being asked to really put into practice all the things we've learned from many, many lifetimes before this, for this very moment in time, to help shift the collective consciousness on this planet to be in a much higher vibrational and a much better state than we've ever been. And so everybody who's around us is experiencing their own curriculum. And you've got people who are very young souls who are going here for the first or second time, and they're just figuring out, what it's like to be a person on planet Earth. And so they haven't gotten a lot of experience yet. It's like a very young child who is like, I can tie my own shoe, and they sit there and fumble with it for many, many moments, and you want to help them as a parent, but then they're like, no, they're very adamant, I've got this, I got to figure this out, and you let them have their experience, right? They have to figure out how to tie their shoe. And then you've got other souls who are very old souls who've been around the block a few times, and they kind of come in ready to go, and they come in ready to remember their past experiences, like a lot of the children of today that come in with a lot of experience from their past lives, so to speak. And they're ready to create peace on the planet because that's why they're here. That's why they're coming in large numbers right now, these crystal children, rainbow children. Before that it was the indigo children. And so when you look at everything going on in the world, you have to understand that even though it looks like tremendous chaos and that we're being divided and conquered and there's no hope, there's actually a huge, much overarching, picture, not picture, but a much more overarching kind of concept and something going on right now as a planet where we're being asked to really hold space for these higher frequencies so that people can decide what version of earth they want to be on. And so, as they're having to make these decisions, it's based on their own soul curriculum. Some people are here to learn and to continue to be part of this. Some people are exiting because the vibration's too high and they can't handle the change and the shift going on. So they're literally exiting in different ways, passing on and through many different avenues. And so when you look at kind of who remains right now, it feels like there's a large group of us who are here as very old souls who've already been through experiences like this and are here to hold space for everything else, whether the other people know it or not. And so this is where the dilemma comes because we're all in the same human family. And then all of a sudden, you've got this separation between feeling like the black sheep or feeling like the outcast. For me, it was my family. For Ross, when I married into Ross's family, like that was the first group of people I really connected with. And I felt like were my tribe, you
Wow.
know? And I know that I was raised in a very loving family, a very thoughtful family that my mom passed on when I was pretty young. I was about 21, just out of
Oh,
college.
wow.
And then my father got remarried and had a new experience with his wife that was very different than my own mother.
Mhm.
And it started to create kind of a division in the family. And finally, I had to love my dad enough to let him go. I had to love my dad enough to say, I love you so much. I'm letting you go to have your experience with what you need as a soul right now,
Wow.
because I can't continue to do my work and be in my integrity and be empowered in what I'm here to do while being kind of dragged down in the human construct of the play. And so I chose to step off stage and start a new play, which is the work I'm doing now to be able to be in integrity for myself. And that took a lot of gut and a lot of courage for me to do that. And then since then my dad has passed on and I knew that reconciliation would not occur until after he passed on. And it did. The very day he passed on, he came through to me. I tuned into him. He came through to me and the first thing he said to me from the other side was, "I'm so sorry."
Wow.
And that
Wow.
just hit me so hard, but in the right way, because I
Yep.
knew there was a part of me that knew it would not be resolved until after he had passed and could see me for who I really was and the work I do now. He couldn't see that from the human side. He was too blocked by his own curriculum. He couldn't see that
Of
because that
course.
wasn't part of his curriculum for this go round. And so I had to be big enough to stand up and say, okay, I need to be okay with that. And if I hadn't done that a few years back, I would never be able to do the work that I'm here to do. Even though a lot of the work I do now is built on the foundation he gave me as a kid with a great childhood and a wonderful schooling and a wonderful um, spiritual support and background that he and my mom gave me before their experiences of what they needed to go through took
Well,
place.
and that's back to what we were saying before about finding your destiny and your dharma, and that contributed to give you that foundation to put you to where, you met Ross and now where you are. It was all part of the development of
Yeah.
Heather.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to, further answer your question, I think I've talked to so many people who this is happening to. And I think the reason it happened to me is so I can better relate to the people that I'm working with.
Yes.
And so all the
Yes.
experiences I've had from, losing both parents to losing a child twice, which I, had kind of shared with you earlier,
Mhm.
to, Ross losing his parents to, feeling like our human family feels really small right now, but yet
Yep.
we are attracting in our light family, right? Our family
Love
that
it.
are people who are either we're working with or that are kind of extended family that are way more like family than some even blood relatives that we have. And I think if we can redefine what it means to be family in that way, we will attract in all the people who are meant to be part of our tribe. But I think that can't happen until you actually sometimes let go of your human family,
Yeah.
because there isn't really room right now to hold space for both. Some people can do that. I couldn't, because of I needed to be create enough space for me to do the work that I'm here to do. And some people can do it and it's fine. That's part of their, they can have this and that. It's not a this or a that, it's a this and a that. But everybody has to really make that decision for themselves.
This is so important, and you're hitting such a nerve for I know a lot of people, because a lot of people have this problem, and particularly with the events of the pandemic back in March 2020, and just the whole divide of people having different, very strong emotional opinions on what was right and wrong and what was really happening. And there was a lot of problems within close families and relationships. I know it happened with me personally, and it's kind of like that saying of you're going to still love them, but you can love them from afar. It's like, it's just, to me, it's a matter of almost like emotional and spiritual proximity, and to your point, some people need more distance, need a total break off. So we all have to find our own boundary or our own interaction, of really who we're letting into our energetic field of who's affecting us, who's pushing your buttons, or who can push your buttons, who you're allowing push your buttons, and what are you allowing in your space. It's very, very important. But I love how you termed it, your human family versus your light family, and that's basically it in a nutshell right there, Heather. Like a lot of us are kind of differentiating or even searching for our light family. Back to what we were saying earlier, is that okay, I'm not really fitting in with kind of my immediate situation. So how can I call in my light family? And
Mhm.
do you have any pointers for that to help people do that, call in their people?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think I learned that lesson, I feel like, in a different way early on when I lost my mom, because she was my best friend and I was so
Oh,
close
wow.
to her.
Yeah.
And it was very devastating for me. And I grieved for many, many, many years. In fact, until I really met Ross and started using some of these technologies. That's what actually my self healing from grief came through, using these technologies that we have.
Wow.
And so that was such a beautiful gift, I felt like being given from the universe and getting to meet Ross and his family. But I think early on, I learned that, with my mom, as time went on and I was trying to work through the grief I felt from losing her, I started recognizing that I could, if I really looked at it, I could find motherhood in others around me. And I remember there was one time I wasn't feeling well, and one of my friends from town said, "Why don't you just come over for dinner and I will fix you some soup and take care of you?" And
Wow.
that's something my mom would have done,
For
right?
sure.
But
Yes.
then all of a sudden I realized, wow, even though my mom isn't here this person I know, not super well, but know well enough that I'd be happy going over for for dinner, took care of me. And when I got
Wow.
there, they realized how unwell I was and they let me, sleep on their couch and they took care of me for a night. And it just made me feel so loved and so supported. But
Wow.
I had to be willing, first of all, to put myself out there to say, yes, I'm willing to go to a friend's house when I'm not feeling well. And then to be in a
Yeah.
place where I could recognize, wow, this feels good, because I feel like this is something where I'm feeling the feelings I used to have when my mom would take care of me when I wasn't feeling well. And so there are, and then through my life beyond that, I started meeting more and more people that when I really thought about the qualities my mom expressed to me, I started seeing it better and more apparent in other people. And when I could recognize in someone else those qualities that I loved about her, not only it made me feel closer to her, but
Yep.
it also acknowledged in someone else their mothering qualities. So that really now, by this point in my experience, because now I've lived, more than half my life without her and less than half with her, that I've had so many ample opportunities to experience mothering from so many women, even other men or children, those mothering qualities. It's
Sure.
not just female, right?
Of
And
course.
so those mothering qualities from so many people, I recognize that now I've had the opportunity to have way more than just one mother. And I think it was really hard when I married Ross, and his mom was such a support to me, and she was like, "Oh, wow, I have a mom again," right? And
Yeah.
then even that within a few years' time, she had passed. And so then it was like losing another mother again. And that was a really trying time in our life because I'd already been through this myself. Now I was going through it again and supporting Ross and our son, who was very young at the time. He was 2.5, and we were out of state when it happened and trying to get them home on the plane and, holding space for them to support them. But, I think all of us really have an opportunity here to be able to really look at what defines family, what defines motherhood, fatherhood, friend,
Yes.
confidant, what is that definition? And are we holding ourselves to such a tight definition of what it's supposed to look like that we're missing an opportunity to bring that into our life when we feel we need it in a different way? It's kind of the joke, how do I find Mr. Right when you're looking left?
Yeah.
You
I never
know,
heard that one.
and so it's
Okay.
like because you're so focused on where you
It's
think you're
true.
supposed to look, it's
Mhm.
often off to the side, but we don't see that. We miss that opportunity sometimes because we're so focused on what we think it's supposed to be that we miss the signs all around us that are pointing
Yeah.
us in a different direction. And that's the difference between head and heart space. Because if our head is so focused in one way, we have blinders on. This is nope, this has got to be what it has to be. The universe loves us so much, it says, okay, if that's the way you feel you need to do it, we can do this again. It gives us ample opportunities for us to learn our curriculum. And if part of our curriculum is the definition of family, we're going to be given ample opportunities to understand what that means until we feel settled and at peace about what our new definition is. And that's how we grow. That's how we learn. That's why we're here. We're here to learn. We're here to grow. We're here to be a part of this experience in big ways, little ways, easy ways, hard ways, fast ways, slow ways. We all pick a different curriculum each time, and we pick a different way to experience it each time.
Mhm. Well, it's funny because I'm very much in a position where I don't have a very big immediate family, and I'm very much in a position where it seems like my relationships are really changing as I've gotten older. In that they're just getting so much deeper from me. Like I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. I feel inside so much more of a strong bond with. I'm just thinking of even some of my girlfriends in my life, and some of my students and stuff. Like just very connected and very loyal and devoted to them, and like I've got their back, like a sisterhood. And it's funny because it's changed, and I hope it's two-way. But this talk about having a soul family is just as real as blood family. I mean, it's a connection at the heart. And we all know relationships and families that have the person that they haven't talked to in 30 years, whereas the friend, like you and Ross, you feel like you knew each other forever. You have a connection. And to me, like I like what you said. It's like defining what family is, redefining what family is. I think this is very powerful and important, Heather, for all of us to just kind of open our concept, our programming to let in this new idea of, so what if they're not blood relatives to you? You can consider them as family in your heart and in your life and in your experience. And that's enough. I mean, so what for the rest of it?
Mhm. Well, and I think it's also important to remember that we're all connected, regardless of what our curriculum is, regardless of who's doing right and who's doing wrong, whatever your definition of that is. We're all one. We're all connected in this universe. And and as a collective consciousness, we're all needed for the universe to exist.
Yeah.
We're all needed. And so even the people that are the people that either trigger us the most or are the biggest enemy or what we feel like that's the human construct keeping us in our head of divide and conquer and
Yeah.
getting us to fight each other, right? That's what this whole pandemic's been about, is to fight each other so that we can be distracted over here while other things are going on over here that no one is supposed to see,
Yeah.
right? And so that's really what this whole time period's been about. But it's also been about people being forced to now live in their heart space than their head space because they've been going on the rat race reel so fast. They haven't taken time with their family to figure out what really is important to them. And when everybody got shut down into their house, that became really clear really fast. And that even affected the education system when people started, seeing their kids being taught online and what the teachers were saying or not saying or doing or not doing, and how that kind of is needing a whole revamp, going forward. And
Mhm.
so had we not been through that experience, we wouldn't have been forced to make some decisions in our life that people have needed to make to be truer to themselves. And
Yes.
so, I think that's part of this time period right now is we're being asked to live in integrity, and we're being asked to live in our heart space and to really be called to action of what our true purpose is and why we're here. And not all of us can do that when we're living in our head under obligation of the programming that we've been programmed about what is success and who you're supposed to be with and what your job is supposed to be along the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Can you tell us more about your experience with children? You mentioned about, the online and in school and stuff because you've you've been able to combine your gifts and your talents, your clairvoyance and your intuitive abilities and capabilities with teaching and connecting with children. Can you tell us about your work? And maybe let's just start with some clarification of definitions for all of us. Like, we're hearing about star children, indigo children, rainbow children, these quote unquote special kids coming in. What is your experience with that? What is it? What is your experience with that? And let's start with that.
Sure. I think it goes back to a time in my life when I was teaching, and I didn't really understand what was going on at that time because it was just the stuff I didn't know, I didn't know. Like there's
Yep.
stuff you know you don't know, and stuff you don't even know you don't know. And it wasn't even that part of my experience where I even was aware of that. I was just trying to be a really good teacher and teach to the best of my ability and go every day with an excitement to, help the world. That was what I was here to do, right? Help the world by teaching all these children. And what's interesting is I would watch my fellow colleagues teach and have children at the same time. And I recognized how hard that was because as a teacher, you're so focused on those kids and meeting all their needs. I would watch a lot of my colleagues have children that would be kind of pushed to the side because they were focused on the class, not everybody, but it was
You only
kind of
have so much
common enough.
energy. Yep.
Yeah, it was common enough I was seeing it everywhere. And so I'd made a vow to myself that when I got married and I had children, I would not teach because I wanted to make sure I could focus on my own family. That was really important to me. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And I'm so grateful that when I met Ross and I said, that's one of my dreams, he said I would have it no other way. And he was so supportive from the beginning. And that was one of the ways I knew that he was the right person for me, is because he supported my dreams and my goals very early on. And so
Wow.
when it came time to have a family and to start a family, what I find really interesting is that, I always thought it would be amazing to be able to learn sign language because I wanted to be able to communicate with my child very early on. And so, lo and behold, before this, when I had met Ross, was when he and his dad were working on this consciousness raising technology called the Lightfield in Chester, Massachusetts. And we're thrilled to announce that the entire Lightfield Foundation will actually be moving to Rhode Island in the upcoming months to be a part of the Awaken
The
Wholeness
center.
Center
Yep.
building, which we're super thrilled of. But initially, this technology, when I was working with him and his dad on it, when I was firstly married and new to this whole concept of the things they were doing and trying to wrap my mind around exactly what is all this that they're doing. It sounds fascinating. It sounds interesting. It resonates as being true, but I have no idea what's going on. And so I remember one day very clearly early on, I remember being in the lab with them and saying, I really would like to tune in and channel, kind of like they're channeling. And I remember giving a very specific request one day to say, I'd really like to channel like they do. I want to do more than just some of the woodworking that I was doing to help them build the unit. And so, not very long after that was when my ability started to come online. And so, it was me using this technology once it was built. It was fostering within me some of these latent abilities, which we actually all have. And so, that in combination was when a lot of my clairaudience and clairvoyance started coming online. And then you add to the equation when my son Owen, when I was pregnant with my son Owen, all of a sudden these abilities were expanding. And he's the one who brought in the ability of telepathy for me to communicate telepathically with children. And so now, fast forward in the work, I've had many years' experience being able to communicate with children telepathically, whether they're in the center or remotely. I've been able to do intuitive sessions for people, whether it's one person, a family, a child, and to be able to do this work to help provide a an avenue for people to be able to get a window into their child's world or a window into their own world that they may not have initially. And to be able to provide a kind of like a roadmap for some of the things that those people are going through to be able to help, them understand more of their purpose or understand a little bit more about what their questions are in their own life to help them get on track. Because each one of us have these abilities, but it's really taking the initiative and the understanding that we have to be able to be in our heart space and take our own life back to be able to bring those things online. And for me, I remember experiencing things when I was younger that I couldn't describe, such as near death experiences or premonitions or things like that, that I didn't really know how to, what it was until I really met Ross and his family and they could put words and descriptions and definitions to some of the things I'd experienced in my life. And so I think that these kids coming in right now already are fully telepathic. They're already remembering their past lives. And it's our job as, community and family to really try to foster some of those things within the children because they're at a place where they're already online when they come in, whereas we kind of checked our memory at the door and now we're trying to remember all these things from our past experiences to be able to be more authentic to ourselves and what we are capable of, beyond just the human definition of what people think is possible.
So my understanding with the star children, the indigo children, the crystal children, and these are all, I guess, differentiated. They're not, they're specifically different types of children, apparently, and that they're categorized. Well, I guess from what I understand, they were given those names because of the visual light auras that they would project that people actually saw, hence like indigo and stuff and
That's correct.
crystal. And they have specific traits that are unique, which is how they get categorized. And what I've always wondered, Heather, is because, every parent in the world, I'm a dog parent, and I like my dogs are so smart. You wouldn't believe how smart my dogs are. You should hear me talk about my dogs, right? And every parent in the world does that with their kids, right? Oh, wait till you see a picture. My kid, so smart. Wait till you hear what she did yesterday. So how do we differentiate, like, even or a child protege, and to me, every child is special. Every child is beautiful. Every child is gifted. Every child. But we're not talking about that, right? So how do we differentiate, Heather, between these indigo, star, rainbow, crystal children and just super smart or very gifted kids?
Mhm. I think, just to clarify, you're asking to maybe bring more of a definition to that.
Yeah, or just help the audience and me understand. Because again, we all think, oh, my kid's so smart, or they, the intuition comes in, or they pick up things quickly, or they're very gifted, and wow, they can play the piano and they're only 5. And it's like, okay, but where do we kind of cross that line and take it up a few notches and go, wait a minute, this is freaky. This kid is talking about, complete detailed past life experiences or going through scenarios that they couldn't possibly know, that they never experienced before. I've heard you talk about, your son, the first time he did the sauna, and he had never done a sauna with you or with you and your husband, but he was talking about he's already done saunas. And so how do we know, like, okay, my kid is actually qualifying as one of these star children as opposed to a very advanced kid?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, one of the things that helped me to really define that is there's an author named Meg Blackburn, and I have a number of parent reference books on my website on the reference page.
Great.
And she
Perfect.
had a number of books that she wrote that really defined very well the different categories of each of these types of children, because some are considered star seeds and some are indigos. And, it kind
Yeah.
of part of it depends on the time period when the children came in. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, those were the indigos. Starting in around 2000, that was, kind of more of the crystal children. And then after that, 2010 or so were the more of the rainbow children. And like you said, all based on their auras. And so there's some great definitions within each of some of these reference materials that could go into depth, because the list is pretty long for each category.
Yeah.
But one of the ways that I understand it is when you look at these children, they really can look right through you.
Hmm.
Like, you look into their eyes, and there's this knowing and this depth that you can't miss. And so, one of my first, telltale signs is by looking in a child's eyes and really connecting with that child. And seeing, and acknowledging that I see them. And so there have been times where I've been out in public, and I think even as a teacher, I've always had children drawn to me. I just have this energy where children come in to me, even if they don't know me. They're the kids in the store that just start talking to you, and and their parents are standing by, not totally paying attention. They come up and start a conversation with you. I've always kind of had that happen
Mhm.
to me, and so, but add on the whole new opportunity to communicate with young children telepathically. And it's been really fascinating to me to be able to be in these conversations with young children, infants, in kind of a public setting where, I'm having these full-on conversations with these kids and these, young children. And, I just try to kind of look like I'm smiling and like
Yeah.
pretending
Without
I'm
saying a
smiling at
word. So
the kids,
nobody.
the kid's baby, because like otherwise I don't want the parent thinking I'm
Yeah.
weird or like, like crossing a line somewhere. So I kind of look away, but the kid's still talking to me, and I'm just like acknowledging and
You're having a
celebrating
full
them. And
conversation.
and
Yeah.
then and then I just like kind of say, "Oh, what a beautiful child you have," and meanwhile we've had this whole dialogue and this whole conversation. And so sometimes it strikes me as funny, because we say that it has to be one thing or another and a certain definition, but sometimes these kids can actually cross thresholds between some of these terms of crystal,
Yeah.
indigo, and rainbow and starseed,
Mm.
based on their purpose, why they're here, when they came, and kind of their own persona.
Yeah.
But the books that I found that were really helpful to me was, I have a couple of them here if you want to just, sometimes seeing the cover is helpful, but there's one by Meg Blackburn called The Children of Now. This
Oh,
one
I've heard
here.
of that. Okay, so on YouTube, everybody, if you want to check out the visual, it's Awakening Aphrodite podcast.
And then there's one called Parenting the Children of Now.
I love these book colors. Interesting, they both have now. And it's Meg Blackburn,
Meg
did you?
Blackburn,
Mm-hmm.
and Meg Blackburn, Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
And then The Children of Now, Evolution, How We Can Support the Fast Forward Evolution of Our Children and All of Humanity.
I love these book covers.
This one
Wow.
here.
Powerful.
So these have been really helpful to me. And then
Okay.
initially there was a woman, and her name was Doreen Virtue, and
I've
she was
heard of her.
known
Yeah. She talks with
for,
angels.
yeah, yeah. And she
Mhm.
was known for having a couple books about crystal children and rainbow children, and had some great definitions. And her work, she doesn't validate her work anymore right now. And I have my own theory as to why that has occurred, which probably can't really be discussed. But it feels to me like the work that she did long ago also helped me when my son was young, and I was starting to see these anomalies with him and trying to understand more about him. And these are the authors that I used in my own parenting that really helped me. And then I also have a
Awesome.
full list of reference materials on the reference page of our website that will also maybe help parents to navigate that. But these kids are really, like you said, they're well beyond their years of
Yeah.
understanding. They
Yeah.
are very much, their eyes look right through you when you talk with them. They often will describe things that you as a parent or a friend or a relative know that they have not experienced, but they're describing something that they've experienced either through
Yeah.
a past life, through astral traveling at night, through their own parents' eyes, using their own parent as considered a remote viewer, so to speak, like in a different way, a different context. I've known, and it has happened to me as well with my son, of where he's described something that I was doing when he was really little, but he was using my eyes to remote view through
Wow.
me to be able to describe to me something I
Oh
was
my gosh.
experiencing. And
That's so
then
cool.
I've heard that from a number of parents that I've worked with. Their children usually announce their name before they're born, and they'll tell the mother or the father, usually the mother, what their name is supposed to be before they arrive.
Wow.
And they are always barefoot when you meet them, and they're grown and they're running around. They always want to be barefoot. They want to be in nature. They want to be connecting with the earth. And they find really interesting ways of finding each other when they feel they need to be surrounded by more children like them. And they will pull themselves into group activities, random things based on either past life experiences or this life, to be able to find each other, and they network with each other, and they can do that in real time and also remotely through telepathy. And so it's amazing, like all these kids coming in right now to be a part of this very time frame, this very shift going on the planet, because they know they're needed to shake things up. That was the indigos, and then provide context for peace. And that's the rainbow
Crystals.
and the
And
crystals. They're
yeah.
here to be peacemakers. So when they're in your family and there isn't peace and harmony going on, they take on that energy to try to transmute it. And that can be very difficult for them and parents, because all of a sudden they have symptoms that are sometimes alarming for their health,
Hmm.
because they are trying to take on the energy of the parent or the situation, or they're in a grocery store and they run into all this random energy and they pick it up like a little sponge,
Yeah,
and
they're empaths.
you
Yeah.
know they don't realize that they need to be able to off that and move that energy through. So that's when I talk to children about being a duck and not a sponge. They're both yellow, but one absorbs and one you know
Hmm.
has the oil on and can let that energy go through them and around
Yeah.
them to be transmuted. And so that's some of the work I'll do with these kids and these parents, of teaching them common practical steps to be able to help them navigate this time, so that they don't become, when they're older, someone who can't really, who struggles functioning in society and resorts to social media and other avenues, because they don't know how to explain the things they're experiencing, at night, by seeing ghosts or astral traveling, or they can hear things or see things. And it can scare an older child when they've experienced this as a younger child and they don't know who to turn to talk to about it.
And from what I understand, it's quite common that these children have night terrors and nightmares because, well, a lot of times they're reliving things, and it can be very challenging for the parents because it's a whole nother set of circumstances. These, like, how do the parents navigate, and the typical parenting rules of, oh, just do it because I'm your parent and I tell you to, isn't really going to fly, and they're dealing with things that are of a whole different nature. And but I have a question though. How do we how much of this influx of these star children and seed children, how much of it do you think it's because the parents or the people, the adults in society, are more receptive to it. Whereas in the past, like maybe 60, 70 years ago, if the kid, a 2, 3 year old kid said, Mommy, I remember when I worked on the farm and I had my long dress and I really didn't like when, and they go through a whole rendition of something that they said happened to them. And the mother's like, what on earth are you talking about? We live in the city, or whatever. How much of all this influx of children like this, do you think it's because the adults are more receptive to a child saying something like this, so they're not poo-pooing it, therefore it gets developed and evolved in the child, whereas in the past, it would have been just completely shut down or whatever, not nurtured, so we didn't acknowledge that there were all these children
Yeah, it's
around?
a great question. I think we're evolving as a whole species. And as the vibration and frequency is rising higher and higher, then it's calling in these children because they can't come in unless the frequency is high enough for them to be here. And so that's one of the things happening. And to several people I know, including myself, is that, these kids can only come in at a certain time point because the frequency has to be high enough for them to be able to actually touch in and stay. And so it's a wonderful testament to us as a collective consciousness that we've risen high enough now that these children can even come in. And there are other children who are even beyond that, that are slating to come in and trying to come in and touching down and leaving because it still isn't the right time for them to be here. And,
Wow.
when our son was, 2.5, Ross and I were like, okay, number two, here we go. We're, ready to expand our family. And I was pregnant for maybe 2 months and then lost the baby. And it was a very clear message as to why they left. They were coming in with a very clear list of requirements that we needed to fulfill for them to be here. And at first I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, but I don't know if I'm in a place to do those things that they were requiring of me at that time because I just didn't have enough information. I felt like I wasn't a good enough mom. I felt like I wasn't advanced enough. And I was like, I will do everything I can to, follow what you're asking of me, but I feel a little inadequate as a parent to be able to follow these requests. And they were very simple requests at the time, but it seemed like kind of very far-fetched of something you'd see in the future and not something like in that current time frame. And after 2 months, they left. And I don't think, and I had a miscarriage. So I don't know that it was just about me, but I think it was challenging me as a parent to really up my game. And so, and I was trying to do that, but it wasn't the right time. And so then fast forward to just over a year ago. And I had been kind of holding space this whole time for like, is there supposed to be a number two? I can feel this soul wanting to come in. It would touch and go throughout the last few years. But it really, one day I got a very, very clear message. I'm ready to come. This is the time I need to come. This is my window. Take it or leave it. This is what is the window that I need to come in on. And it was a little intimidating to say the least,
Wow.
because we're in the middle of, running two businesses. I've already been running the Awaken Wholeness Center for the last 4 years, just in a different location as we're getting ready to expand. Ross is in the middle of running Conscious Technologies. We're, homeschooling our son. There's just a lot of shifting going on in the life. And I was like, and I remember sitting down with Ross and saying, this is the message coming through. And he's like, I'm like, this is very clear. And we talked about it. And he said, okay. He said, okay. And so we knew that there was a universal timing here for this little one coming in. And we did everything we could to hold space for that. And so within a few months' time, I was pregnant. And at the time I got it would be a very different pregnancy than any other pregnancy, and got this beautiful message about it. And so we conceived and I was pregnant. And around the 6 month mark was when something shifted
Oh no.
and something happened. And it wasn't no, it was no longer the right time.
Oh
And this
no.
baby left, and it
Oh
was
my God.
devastating. And it
Yeah.
was, my whole body is chilled right now talking about
Oh
this,
my
but
God.
it was very devastating and very hard. And one of the things it said to me is, you have more work to do, and I have more work to do. And when that work is done, I'll be back.
Oh my God. Wow.
And so I had to,
I
and
got
that's
chills.
something that I'm
Wow.
still going through, that grieving
Yeah.
process. I think it's something most women go through, but
Wow.
never it's really talked about.
Wow.
But I have to trust enough that that is what's right for this little one and for us. And
But what
now
a
that is
gift
right.
that message is too. What a
Yeah.
gift. I mean,
Yeah.
at least you can hang on to that. I mean,
Yeah. And so, and then right after that was when we were able to now focus on enlarging our center, which is the exact work we needed to do, that
that's
we
what I
kind
was
of
talking
knew was
about.
coming, but we didn't know the time frame
And you
at
wouldn't
the
have been
time
able
that
to
this
with a
little
new
one left.
baby. You wouldn't have
Yeah,
been able to with a new baby.
yeah,
I mean, yeah.
exactly,
So the
exactly.
timing.
So this is happening time and time again to women, where they will be pregnant and they'll miscarry, and they'll be pregnant and they'll miscarry. And part of that reason is because these souls coming in are either wanting just a touch and go experience, to feel what it feels like to be on planet Earth at this time, but aren't intending to stay. The other reason is because it's too early and the planet hasn't shifted enough for them to stay. And they're such a high vibrational being that they can't literally come fully in yet. And so I've talked to a number of mothers that this has happened to. And it's been very reassuring to them, for me to share this message with them, because we take it so personally as a woman when the baby chooses something else. And we have to remember, children pick their parents, and they pick when they're supposed to come in, and they pick everything about what they need for their soul experience. And we as parents have to trust that more when we're going through, the holding of space for and inviting a spirit and a soul to come into our life, and for that whole process of carrying that child with us. And so it can be very challenging when we don't always understand why it is happening the way it is. But if we can understand that we're all here for our own soul experience, and that these children are no different than we are in what they're choosing and how they're choosing and when they're choosing, at least it makes it a little bit easier to digest when they don't stay. Not
Oh
that
my
it makes it
gosh.
any easier. And I speak that from my heart.
From direct
Um,
experience.
Sorry, I speak that from my heart because it's been
Yes.
really hard. But I know enough to know that this little one is exactly where they need to be right now, doing exactly what they need to be doing to be ready, and that I'm doing what I need to be doing, and that I can still be able to hold space for that and hold them in my heart, regardless of how that comes to manifestation in the future.
Wow. Thank you, Heather. That's very powerful and very touching. Thank you for sharing that. My prayer is that's going to help someone listening or watching that needed to hear that, that probably has gone through it too.
Mhm.
And I I would venture to say I'm sure that helped them a lot. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
As we get toward the end here, I hate to say it, but we are at the end here. Can you, with your amazing abilities, can you give the rest of us mortals any tips for cultivating our own intuitive abilities? We've talked about getting into your heart space, which is so critical to everything, and where to start. But gosh, I mean, you're speaking telepathically to children, Heather, and your ability to really be clairvoyant. I mean, you basically read me as soon as we connected today on for the recording, and you picked right up on my energy. If you want, you can talk about that. I'm okay with it. But just kind of like, what happens with you, like when that? Let me ask you that. So a two-part question. Hold off on the cultivating our intuitive tips. Let's just start with what happens in you, so maybe we can understand, because you did also mention that we all have the ability to do this, right? So what happens in you that we can start tuning into for us when you get an intuitive hit on somebody?
Mhm. I think that, my first My first prayer always is to ask for protection when I'm doing this kind of work,
Yeah.
because, and I think that's also an important message for parents who are supporting children who are intuitives, because they're so open and they don't always recognize they need to be asking for protection to make sure that the information coming through is clear and concise and coming from source and coming from,
Yes.
a positive light, full of light place, because there
Yes.
are unfortunately other energies out in the
Yeah.
cosmic field that want to mess with that and want to
Hmm.
play with that. And we can't allow that into our space to do clear, concise, accurate work.
Hmm.
I think the second thing for me is setting Heather aside. Anytime
Yes.
when I first started this work a long time ago, anytime I thought that I would be asked a question about something, it was usually by Ross's dad, Mark, and he was working on a technical part of a project, and he'd want to know the numerology or the number for something or the material, and just to confirm the information he was getting. And I was like, oh boy, I'm up against this genius of a man, Brown
World class
University
inventor. He's
engineer,
got hundreds of patents and
hundreds of
yeah.
patents
Oh
under
my
his name.
goodness.
And he's
Yep.
asking me a technical question.
Yeah.
Heather doesn't know the answer.
Yeah. On the spot.
And so anytime Heather, any amount of ego got in there, I couldn't get an answer. It would be
Hmm.
fuzzy, it would be unclear, it would be inaccurate. So I learned very early on that I had to breathe, ground myself. I had to ask for protection and just get really still and just ask for the betterment of this project. This isn't has nothing to do with Heather. This has to do with receiving a clear message as to what's needed from a benevolent place for the best of humanity, for the accuracy of this project. What is the information that's needed here? And it would come through instantly. It would just come through instantly. And so I think it's setting ego aside. I think it has to do with grounding and being still in your own thought. It has to do with, not trying to impress, and one of the jokes I kind of make with a lot of my clients that come in is I say, we can, I'm happy for you to ask me any question. I just don't do lottery numbers.
Yep. Yes.
Because it's, it has to be in the belief system, it has to be in the belief system of the people that you're working with. And sometimes I'll receive information and I'll get a very clear message. You're receiving this information as context, but you're not supposed to share this because it's too hard for the other person to hear. But this is for your information as the intuitive, to have the background, to be able to put
Yeah.
it into layman's terms, to help someone on their journey of being here and wanting to be here and trying to understand what is the right dynamic to get them to see something in a different way by asking them questions and connecting with them in a way that respects where they are for their understanding. And so there's a certain art that I've learned over time of just doing this and messing up and crashing and burning and getting back up again, to be able to work with someone and meet them where they are by helping, but also helping them grow and challenging them just enough to go past that point of fear, to go past that point of concern or worry. Because I think a lot of us have this innate ability to have the ability, we all have this latent ability within us to be intuitive. But what gets in the way is the construct. What gets in the way is the programming we've been programming, that we've been programmed with. It's weird, it's woo-woo, I don't believe it, all that. I think one of the things that gets in the biggest thing is fear. Fear of getting, either the right answer, the wrong answer, not knowing what to do with it, and being worried about, how that's coming through or perceived by other people. And so one of the people I worked with, Dr. Spencer Johnson, my husband Ross and I both worked with him as his personal assistant for many years. And he asked a very powerful question to us, and that is, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I think that question in and of itself can help anybody get unstuck in their life, whether it's what career choice they're making, what they want to do with their, how to raise their children, how to be more in integrity and living in their heart space. If you can sincerely answer that question, what would you do if you weren't afraid? People often know, not 100% of the time, but the majority of the time, people know exactly what they would do differently in their life. They know exactly what they would do to support their own family better or to be in the career of their choice and living in their heart space and singing their song, truly singing their song. So it resonates in this space within them. But what gets in the way is fear and ego and programming and obligation. And if we can really start asking ourselves, what would I do if I weren't afraid? Why am I making this choice? Is it really an integrity in my heart space of what I'm supposed to do? And if we can get past that, then we can be more open to the angel messages that come, to the intuition that comes to us that's just right there at all times. But we have to trust that inner gut. We have to trust the gut that says, I don't think I'm supposed to go to that party. I'm not supposed to drive this way to work today. I think I'm supposed to go a different way. And then we're like, I always go this way, or if I don't go to the party, someone's going to say something and then I'm not going to be cool or popular, or, my friend's going to not understand why I'm saying no. Many times our intuition is telling us each and every day exactly what we're supposed to do, but we're not paying attention because we're too busy on our phones and in the world of, social media. And it's there on purpose to keep us stirring the pot, to keep us distracted. These are all distractions from our true, intuitive self. And I, like you said in your one of your podcasts, like it's how we communicate, it's how we do business. That's okay. But if it's to the extent that we're not within our own true integrity and we're not being able to tune into our own ideas and get the angel messages we need and follow them and trust that our body is telling us this, the universe is guiding us, our guides are guiding us to these different things, choices we need to be making. Then what happens is when it doesn't work out, we wonder why. And when it doesn't work out, or we get in that accident, or something happens at the party we didn't want to be a part of, we're like, well, shoot, why did that happen to me? Well, the sign was there all along. Were you paying attention to all those signals?
Yeah.
Were you paying attention? And that goes back to the relationship I was in that I exited out of before meeting Ross. All the signs were there. And every time I made a small choice to compromise my own integrity
Yeah.
and my own belief system, and I ended up almost marrying a man that I wasn't supposed to be married to. And that I don't know at the time, I know I loved him, but it wasn't the same kind of love that I experienced with Ross. It was more of a surface love because that's what I thought it was supposed to be from all the movies and the world telling me that's my definition. It wasn't honest to goodness true soulmate love because it wasn't with the right person. Now they needed to be a stepping stone, and I'm grateful for that. If I hadn't been through that, I wouldn't have been able to ask the tough questions of Ross that made me realize it was so right. That contrast, right? So in our curriculum, we're always learning along the way exactly what we need to learn to be able to grow every step of the way so that whenever it's our time to transition and go to our next experience, we take all that with us and we continue to grow as a soul. And that's why we can say that we're ageless and eternal and that we live forever. We truly do. And we continue to take these experiences with us to the next experience. And that's how we continue to grow, within our own consciousness.
Heather, this has been just amazing. We've covered a lot of ground. I am just so grateful for you taking the time to share with us your experience and all this very useful information. Obviously, we could talk forever. Are there any other things that you would like to share just to feel complete, or anything else coming through for you that you think is important at this time?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I think that the most important thing that I'd like people to walk away with today is that you are the captain of your ship. And you're the one in control of your life. You're in the driver's seat, nobody else. It doesn't matter what anybody else tells you, the world, your neighbor, your parent, your best friend, your spouse. You are the one who's in control of your life. And when you can get to a point where you feel truly empowered, knowing that you can be in your own integrity, in your own heart space, and living your life and singing your song exactly the way you need to be doing that, that's when all time stops. And that's when we are literally in a channeling state to be able to go through our day without time and without energy that is overexertion. It's like this beautiful flow of a day where we're in perfect health and perfect wellness and really singing our song and doing what we're here to do. And so I encourage each one of you to take the time to be still. Take the time to be in nature. Take the time to go sit on the ocean or under a tree or on a mountaintop or even in your own backyard, even in the city, in the middle of everything going on. Take some time just to be still, to get really quiet and ask for help from your guides. Ask for help from your angels that are already there providing whispers of information, and they're there to help support, but they can't always act because of free will until we ask for that help and we are sincerely sitting and waiting for an answer. And so, if we can get to that place, then we'll be in a much more decisive place to be know exactly what we're supposed to be doing and where we're supposed to be at every moment of every day. That then puts us in alignment with all the synchronicities that the universe has for us and is waiting to share with us when we're present in that now moment so that we can experience that.
Perfect. Heather, how can people find you and Ross and all of these amazing products you have to help us get more coherence in our lives, more connection with our own intuition, and raise our consciousness?
Oh, thank you, Amy. Yeah, my website is awakenwholenesscenter.com.
Mhm.
awakenwholenesscenter.com. And that's the site for our center in Richmond, Rhode Island, which will be opening up in the next couple months again. We're super excited. We have a whole list of people who've never been, as well as all my clients from our other location in Wakefield, where we used to be, waiting for us to open our doors. We'll have expanded opportunities with technologies, and I have a number of practitioners I work with alongside to do all kinds of energy work to help you. And we'll have classes, lectures, and yoga and sauna and some other fun surprises.
And you're going to have the core harmonizer, right? The core harmonizer, my favorite.
Yep, we
Okay.
have a whole room just for the core harmonizer, a whole
Yay.
room for the quantum flow, and a whole room for the cohere meditation mat, and also the Lightfield technology and
Wow.
grace. So we'll have a number of technology rooms and also a new technology Ross is working on, the B box, which has to do with B frequencies.
Wow.
And then my husband's website is Conscious Technologies LLC.com. That
Mhm.
LLC is really important in that URL. And then we also have another site, Vogel-Cut where we sell our Vogel-Cut crystals. And then also the Lightfield Foundation, a nonprofit, which Ross's dad and family started. And that's lightfieldfoundation.com. And those are our URLs that you can find us and reach out to us anytime so we can help anybody who needs the help they're seeking.
And I will redirect everyone to episode 105 with Ross, who is Heather's amazing husband. And we talk about connecting to the higher consciousness and creating core harmony. And we also get into Vogel-Cut crystals and how they're very, very unique. They're basically like the gold standard of crystals, the most powerful energetic crystal you can get. That's episode 105. And you can also find the technologies and energy products that Heather's referring to on my e-store, because I feature two of them. I feature the Core Harmonizer, which is just the most beautiful sound machine ever that I talk about a lot. And you can get that at a discount by the coupon code FitAmyTV10. And again, that's just on my website. And also, I've got the Vogel crystals on my website as well. You can read more about why they're so superior and effective and use that coupon code again, FitAmyTV10, over on Ross's site. And they're gracious enough to give us all a discount. And I love it. Well, I'm going to have Ross back on then and talk about the B-Box, baby.
Yeah, yeah. And we
Awesome.
also too have a whole line of EMF products for parents who are
Yes.
concerned about, the EMFs. And we have necklaces. I have mine on today, and we have
Yes.
laptop trays and whole house EMFs that literally reverse the spin field on your EMFs in your home too. So if you're looking for any of those supporting, technologies, we're here for you.
I was literally reading today in some of my research that we're now even knowing that EMS literally change the blood. I mean, it's kind of like, duh, yeah. But we actually have, they're doing more scientific studies now to kind of show, like, right for people's eyes to see, like, here's blood not exposed to EMF, and here's blood, like, 10 minutes later. It's like, you think your phone and all this stuff is not completely changing your biochemistry? Well, guess again. It's very real. So I'm grateful that you guys are developing these effective products to help us, because we're not anti-technology. It's here to stay, but we want to learn how to live in harmony so it doesn't ruin us. That's what it's about, right? Creating harmony.
Yeah. And I think also just remembering that we are, each one of us, the most amazing piece of technology. Within us already resides the coherence to be able to be above and beyond even the products we have. These are all
Mm-hmm.
meant to be training wheels to help us
Yes.
to be in that higher vibrational state, which is what we're all here to do.
To me, they also help combat all the influx we're getting from the outside world, to kind of like give us that little boost, like you said, that it's a little bit of a training wheel or a crutch or whatever to help us combat all this not natural stuff that we deal with in a modern life. We
Yeah.
weren't designed to have literally hundreds of thousands of chemicals and biotoxins and all these different things that we're exposed to, that
Right.
our DNA hasn't had a chance to catch up to even know how to defend against. So, we sometimes we need a little help.
Exactly. And that's why we're here to help with that.
There you go. Fantastic. Wow. Thank you so much, Heather. This has been a fascinating, educational, inspiring conversation. I knew it would be. And super grateful again. And everybody, thanks for listening and watching the show. Thanks for sharing it. And go ahead and let us know what you think. And I'm just super grateful you all here. And I can't wait to be with everybody again. And Heather, I can't wait to come on out to Rhode Island. I'm going to make a road trip with my dogs in my little mini camper. We'll take a little road trip out and come see your place when it's up and running.
Sounds great, Amy. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be on your show today. Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Episodes come out every Tuesday. Go ahead and awaken Aphrodite in you. Would you like to support my mission to help empower people all over the world to be all of who they truly are? If so, please subscribe to the show, leave a review on iTunes, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to take immediate action to align your energy and optimize your health, visit amyfournier.com. Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite. Let's awaken her together in you. I'm your hostess, Amy Fournier, and I already can't wait to be with you again and for you to hear what I have planned for the next show.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. To learn more about Amy, check out her website, amyfournier.com. That's AMYFOURNIER.com. You can also check out Amy's live and on-demand virtual fitness and yoga classes, and sign up for her newsletter to receive a free mini ebook of 3 of her top tips for making holistic health a lifestyle. Again, that's amyfournier.com, and get your ebook sent to your email immediately. Connect with Amy on the daily on Instagram at FitAmyTV, FITAMYTV, and watch many of the podcast episodes and subtopic clips on her YouTube channel, which is also FitAmyTV. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.